Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we read chapters 36, 37, and 38 of Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. And now we're going to talk about them, because that's what we do, in case you are not familiar with the show. I've been listening to some other podcasts, and every time they reintroduce the being, it's like, this is a Brandon Sanderson rereading podcast, or this is a Babylon 5 rewatching podcast. And I'm like, we never do that, and it's really too late to start doing that every time now, but I can see why you might.
But I mean, if you got this far, surely you know.
Yeah, I assume that it's in case somebody new joins, so they're like, know what the podcast is about and lets them know. Maybe you want to go back and watch an earlier or listen to an earlier episode.
Yeah, because you never know. There might be somebody who's just like, oh, Sanderlanche, let me just play the most recent episode and see what this is. But,
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's old dogs, new tricks. We've been doing this for 200 episodes, but it was something I was thinking about this week. So anyway, in these chapters, Shallan finally arrives at the Shattered Plains and meets up with pretty much all of our other viewpoint characters at this point in a big meeting that the king is holding. So interesting interactions there. It's the first time that we've had Shallan actually interact with any of our other main characters, if you don't count Yasna. So, all new ground here. I'm Data, and with me today is...
Jamie.
Joe. And Dak.
So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin. So yeah, 3 chapters this week, a little down from the 7 chapters last time. But what did you guys think of these 3 chapters?
You guys know me. I've been waiting for this moment that they all end up in the same room for a book and a half now, which has really been like 3 books because it's so long. But yeah, I was happy. I quite enjoyed that scene with Kaladin and Shallan again. And I'm really glad that the boots were mentioned. But they were actually really horrible to each other. I didn't expect it to go like in that direction. I think it was done well, but I didn't expect it to go so mean so fast. So we'll see what happens there. Sadius still a slime ball, honestly. Can't believe we ever liked that guy. At one point we were like, like he's not the greatest, but like I kind of like him. He's, enjoyable. He's just awful. Adolin and Shallan being attracted to each other. I was like, okay, that's starting off in the right foot, I guess. I didn't see her going with the other guy. I can't remember his name, but that was well played, and he was on board with that. That could have gone very, very pear-shaped for Shallan. So it was a lot of fun. But it was a lot of fun little moments in really just it was kind of one scene, start to end, just changing perspectives throughout. Hard moment for Navani as well to be. So I don't think we realized that they had already received news that the ship went down. Because I think last time it was mentioned on page, it was more that they've been delayed and who knows, she'll turn up in a week or a month, or she's off doing whatever she's doing. So I was a little bit taken aback when they already sort of knew, but now have confirmation that that's what's happened. Yeah, definitely a hard moment for Navani to go through, which I think we expected anyway. Elhokar, so I've listened to the audiobook this week and last week, and Elhokar, the voice for Elhokar sort of reminds me of the guy who's pretending to be Prince Naveen in The Princess and the Frog. And it's
okay.
Very
Lawrence?
Yes.
Oh my God.
But like not as extreme, but kind of in that, and it's putting new images in my head of these characters are like. And it just made me laugh a lot, because I was like, that is absolutely not what I expected of Elhokar at all. But I kind of wish that we got Shallan telling Elhokar as well. Like we kind of got I told him, he took it reasonably well. But I mean, is it probably just going to be a do-over of Navani? Maybe. I don't know really. But all over, good chapters. I'm really happy that we got to this point. and very much looking forward to where we go next.
Yeah, I remember you were very much last time like this has got to be it, right? We're finally going to get everybody together. It couldn't take some weird turn and go another way, right? And no, yeah,
we have to get to the point where they all meet. It has to happen. They are so close.
And you've been anticipating how Navani was going to react to this news for a while, so it's we get at least a piece of it here. You can be sure probably that there'll be more to her response, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think she took it, as well as she could have. I mean, being confronted with the confirmation that your daughter has perished is hard, but she kept her composure and her dignity as much as she could. Like, she didn't break down there and then. She did say, no, you're going to tell me now. I'm not doing this after the meeting. I'm not going to postpone anything. Like, no, I want to know, and I want to know now, and you're going to give me all the details, which was very Navani. But yeah, I think it's going to be a hard time ahead for her for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, we don't get to see how much of a reaction Elokar has. Like, maybe he's deeply hurt. Maybe he doesn't care about his sister. Who knows at this point? But I also like how you hit on. It's like it really does feel like Kaladin and Shallan meeting was just like, this couldn't have gone much worse.
Yep.
Which
that went badly and then badly again. Like, it just. I just love that everyone's kind of like, what is happening here? This is very like public and out there, and I mean for Kaladin as well. Like, they didn't exactly get off on the right foot or boot to begin with. So yeah, it's like, first of all, you're a thief. Second of all, we have so much going on here. Like, I don't know who you are. I don't trust you. There's no way you're getting in this room with all of these people. And then it just deteriorated from there, really.
But I have to say,
best of friends before you know it.
Well, maybe. I don't know about any of you guys, but it was so like over the top. The argument between the two of them, that to me it felt like, are they? When I first read it, I was like, oh no, are they? Is this like that classic rom-com thing where they hate each other just to set up so that they can like fall for each other later? Because I'm not sure that I want that to happen.
Oh boy.
That was my first reaction. I don't know if anyone else felt similar, but that's
I did. I felt the same way. I was like, no, don't, no. Maybe it'll happen in a few books' time. Maybe there's a lot of time left. There's a lot of books.
True. There's a lot of book, just this book, let alone the next two that are already out.
In 3 books' time, Adelin's dead, Renarin's dead, and Shallan's like, who? Like, I need a husband. Dalinar's got, I have one more son. What?
It turns out Kaladin was my son all along.
Not if you were the last man on Earth, Kaladin. Well, I guess I'm the last man on Earth now.
Wait, he's Yorick? Man, that's unexpected. It was a comic book joke for the 2 people out there who would get it.
Does that make the Lopen his monkey?
I mean, could be. I mean, probably Syl more.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, human. I like these chapters a lot. I'll agree that the Shallan Kaladin first official meeting is a little over the top, a little bit. But hey, who would have thought that 2 people who are in a causal together might find each other attractive? It's just one of those things that happens. What can you do? I didn't really get the sense that the bickering between them meant love in their future, but I will say that I think that maybe Adolin and Shallan are set up to like become friends with Kaladin. Like, they both protest too much, and I think that they actually have more in common than they're willing to admit, like the 3 of them. And so I could see them like becoming friends, them all becoming friends.
We know that Shallan and Kaladin at least have secret hidden magical powers in common.
Right.
So
right. Secret magical powers. Adolin and Kaladin have a high sense of honor. And so, they got more going on with each other than they'd like to admit right now.
Okay.
So it'd be cool if they all became friends. I think that'd be fun. And then Renarin could become like evil. but we're still on that evil Renarin train a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I like Renarin. I don't want him to be evil. Anyway, I really like these chapters. That part was fun. We didn't get not a lot of like, besides Shallan getting there, that's like the most that happened. Then there was the meeting, but the meeting was like, it was kind of just like more development between the characters, and not a lot of events took place besides Shallan arriving. So even though we didn't get a lot of action, we did get a lot of information. And so at least about like what our characters know, what they don't know. And I liked seeing the meeting from Shallan's perspective of her being like, wow, Yas's notes are not updated on some of these people because I've walked into something and I am feeling out of my depth here. And so I feel like she does kind of a cool choice of following Tin's advice, but doing it with the person like doing it and getting involved with the person that she feels like is the most like Yasna's notes still, which is Sabarius. She's like, yeah, everybody just thinks he's obnoxious. And he is. Sabariel, sorry, excuse me. And so that was a fun bit. But I'm excited now that everybody's in the same place. Like things can start happening, and we've got like all the crazy stuff going on with the Parshendi. They're becoming evil. So like I'm interested to know what's next for our heroes. I really do like. I tend to. I'll say right now, I tend to pick things apart. I think people who listen to the show know that. But like, I really do like most all of these characters quite a bit. I'd say although I do still really like him, I'd say one of the more flat characters for me is Dalinar, just because he's not super complex, and then Adolin kind of annoys me, but for the most part, I like all of them. So I'm excited to see what happens.
I haven't been seeing into Dalinar's head like at all this book.
Yeah, not as much. Not as much.
That I think probably maybe contributes.
Well, and I think maybe Brandon was trying to give us different perspectives, especially if he knew he was going to write a bunch of these books. He's trying to like focus on certain people in each book. I think we already know that based on like the Yasna retelling prologue of the same events that night when her dad died. And so like we kind of are getting different perspectives in this book than we got in the last book. But yeah, it's good stuff.
See, I like this idea that like Dalinar, not Dalinar, that like Kaladin, Shallan, and Adolin can all be buddies. They go out, hang out together, because we relatively recently Adolin discovered that he doesn't really have any friends who are going to like stick with him.
Right.
On the other hand, we know that Kaladin is a loyal friend. Like right. you couldn't get a much more loyal friend than that. So that would be a good, if they could get over themselves, they could make good friends. I agree.
Right. Yeah, and like, I think there's a lot. Like I said, I think they have more in common than they'd be willing to admit. Like, just what they think is important, like truly important in life. And like, even though one is a light eyes and one's a dark eyes, it's like that's those kinds of friendships between groups of people that don't see eye to eye. I think they can be very like. I think if you're willing to set aside your differences, and I'm talking about like real life relationships too, not just fictional characters. If you're willing to set aside your like more petty differences and willing to listen to the other person's perspective, even if they have a much different perspective than you, I think those are sometimes the more fruitful kinds of relationships you can and friendships you can have in your life. It's like have like being around somebody who does not agree with you and like in a friendly and loving way, like discussing those things and like figuring things out like together. And even if at the end of the day you don't agree with each other, like you can still remain friends. I think those are some of like the better relationships you can have with people. Those are hard. They're you have to maintain those types of friendships and relationships, but I think they're very important.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, in addition, I agree with you. As like a relationship where you're kind of pushing each other and making each other think it's going to be more beneficial to you than when, you're just echoing the same thing back and forth probably. Mm-hmm. But also like you want to have a friend who's the kind of person who can listen to someone else's opinion and like not just like it's not fun to be friends with the kind of person who will not listen to you at all. Basically. Right. So if you can also be that kind of person, then people want to be your friend and everything works out.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like it also, you have to be willing to be called out when like maybe you're not thinking things through, and also like be willing to hold your friends accountable for things, like in a still a friendly way and like a nice way.
Yeah,
but
those can both be tough.
those are tough things to deal with in life. But there you go. There's Joe's 2 cents on friendships and relationships. Do
Getting
what you
deep
will
today.
with them. Yeah.
Okay, so these chapters. All right, I think what we saw in the chapters was really good. I liked the meetings of everyone that we saw. Yeah, I loved Shallan meeting Kaladin. I just loved how almost violent it got, like vitriolic. And then Kaladin sees Gaz and was like, "Oh, and you could sort him with this fucker." Okay. So I thought all that was really good. I thought everything that we saw was really good. But I actually feel really cheated that we never saw Dalinar and Navani get the news that the ship went down and that initial panic that, holy shit, is she okay? And we didn't see Shallan telling Elhokar. I feel cheated by that. Like, those feel like really important scenes that just got yada yada'd over. And between that and this whole the Parshendi envoy setting up a meeting that met with the Alethi just getting glazed over as well, I feel like this book it's skipping over some pretty important scenes, and I'm not okay with that. Especially not if you're trying to give me scene like we're skipping over them in favor of scenes of trying to make Gaz sympathetic. Like, I don't need that. I need to see Dalinar and Navani find out the ship went down. So yeah, like that kind of annoyed me. But like judging like purely based on these chapters, like that's not a part of these chapters. You can't judge them for what they're not.
Right.
So I did like the chapters overall. I think actually one of my favorite bits was the Adolin and Amaram conversation, because we haven't really seen a lot of Amaram since he showed up. We've seen bits and pieces of him. We saw him talking to Sadeas before. And with this conversation, I'm actually just scratching my chin. We know that Amaram is not a good person, but he's really good at hiding that fact because he had Kaladin fooled up until the last. So I'm just like, I can't tell what you're doing. We assume that he is playing Dalinar for Sadeas on Sadeas's behalf because we're predisposed to dislike him. But Amaram's the guy who he wants to come out ahead himself. So if he thinks that playing Sadeas on Dalinar's behalf will get him ahead, he absolutely would do that. Or is he playing both of them and going to stab them both in the back at the same time? I honestly can't tell. So I don't know what Amaram's up to. And this conversation really brought that home for me. So I'm like, okay, what are you doing? Are you trying to knock them both off and set yourself up in their place? Are you loyal to Sadeas? And I don't know. And so that was really interesting. Like, it made me think a lot about Amaram and how little we actually know about him.
Yeah, like what is driving him? What are his motivations? We really don't know.
Yeah. So that was all fun. And then you got this new High Lord that Shallan has met up with and is staying with. Sabariel, was that his name?
Yeah, Sabariel.
Okay, I'm from his personality, I'm fairly certain we haven't met him before. But have we heard of him before? We've heard his name at any point?
Let me check. Let's see. In this book, we've heard of Sabariel one time before now, and this was when she first met up with, or I'm sorry, right after. You're okay. You remember the conversation where Vatha's like, Gaz, did you tell her about like all that money you owed? And then a little bit later, Gaz is walking by and she's like, exactly how much do you owe, man? Like, right before Gaz walks by, she's reading the notes about the other high princes, and it says Thanadal, Betheb, and Sabariel are the ones Yasna didn't think much of. The first one she called oily, the second one a dullard, and the third outrageously rude. So that's the only previous mention in this one. Let me check the other book. There are no mentions of him in The Way of Kings. So
okay. So I thought I had a handle on the various High Lords around the place, even if we didn't know about them. Even if we hadn't met them yet, I thought I had a handle of them. This bit where all of a sudden this guy has just popped up and been really important in this chapter and is apparently going to be a major player, I felt a bit rocked, honestly. This sort of reminded me of way back in my youth when my dad took me to see the first Pokemon movie in the cinema. At the time, a foolish 10-year-old, I was very secure in my knowledge that I knew all 151 species of Pokemon. And then up rolled that fucking elephant to disabuse the shit out of that notion. I'm just like, how many more are there?
A lot.
That is how I felt here. It's like, how many more High Lords are there?
It's funny that you mentioned that, Dak. That is exactly how I felt when I saw the Pokemon movie for the first time. I'm like, I know all the 151 Pokemon. That ain't one of them. What is this elephant guy doing?
Yeah, right.
I I will mention that all the way back in The Way of Kings, when we're shown a map of Alethkar, it's divided into princedoms, and the Sabarial princedom is one of the ones on the map. So it's not like he made up the name when we got to this book. It was there. It's just, I guess.
Oh, sure. I'm sure I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but that's just how I felt. I was like, who the fuck's this guy? Where'd he come from? I felt like a guy with this sort of personality probably should have come up in conversation a bit more.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting that we haven't heard discussion of him, given how bombastic he appears.
Yeah, it's like, Dalinar and Adolin talking about we need allies, and so what about Sabarial? Fuck that guy.
Let's see. I think there are 10 high princedoms within Alethkar.
That's what I thought, and I thought we'd heard all 10 of them, but evidently I was mistaken.
Yeah, okay. So, and I'm looking at the map and counting to make sure. So, Sadeas, Aladar, Royan, Vama, Ruthar, Kolin, Thanadal, Hatham, Bethab, Sabarial. Yeah, that's 10. Okay, so they were all on this first map.
Right, okay.
But
yeah, it just seems like this guy's just like popped up out of nowhere like a fucking whack-a-mole.
Brandon was saving him.
Apparently.
Oh, but yeah, it's I didn't have that experience with the Pokemon movie, so I can't relate. I don't know that I ever felt like I was an expert on Pokemon.
Yeah, but, like the original games.
Sing the song if it's not copyrighted.
I was very all in on the first generation.
At least 150 or more to see.
It says or more, see, right in there.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Right in the song. We got juked.
Gen 1 is still where I feel comfortable. I stopped playing Pokemon Go when they started adding more than Gen 1. I'm like, you know what? I might have gotten close to getting all the Gen 1 ones. I'm not going to get all of them ever, so we're...
This might be an unpopular opinion because I'm sure we have people that are, younger and didn't grow up on Gen 1 originally listening. But, like, honestly, even Gen 2 is a little rough for me. Like, Gen 1 I can accept. Gen 2, I can accept it, a little rough. Gen 3, bad, in my opinion. Of course, that's my opinion. Gen 4, meh. Gen 5, good. And then I didn't play any of the gens until Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield's all right. Scarlet and Violet, I will say the gameplay is fun. The Pokemon, the new Pokemon, besides the starters, I could kind of take them or leave them. But the gameplay fun.
Every gen's had species that I really liked. I've played everything except X and Y and Sun and Moon. I never played Black 2 or White 2.
Yeah.
It took me a while. I didn't play like Platinum or Black until years and years and years after they came out. But I'm like, every generation has had things I liked, but Gen 1 is what I grew up on, so that's what I'll refer back to the most. But like, I recently did a Nuzlocke in Fire Red, and like as I was playing, I was like, man, this is a bit rougher than I remember it being. Like, because it was the foundation that the rest built on, so of course it's going to be
right.
Like they'll refine things for later gens.
Yeah,
right.
I have to say, I obviously can't blame you for disliking missing out on those scenes, but the one that didn't bother me was the one about where they get news about the ship going down, because based on Navani's reaction in this chapter, I'm almost certain that they would get, it's like, oh, the ship has disappeared, it must have gone down, and she'd be like, yeah, no, Yasna's fine, she's just gone off somewhere else. Like, I don't believe she'd buy it for a second.
Yeah, like I 100% would believe it, but it's not just about her. I wanted to see Dalinar find out as well, and like we got robbed of that.
Yeah, because he takes it very coolly in this one. He's just like, oh, it's good to have confirmation. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's like we never see him go through like a grieving process. We've already skipped straight ahead to him accepting it. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, he was banking on her being a valuable ally. Why don't we get that?
That's fair. All right, let's do these chapters, y'all. A New Woman is chapter 36, and our epigraphs continue to be from Words of Radiance, that book that Yasna gave to Shallan and then Shallan lost.
Like just notes from Naz. Couldn't read these pages, too much water.
Yeah, maybe. We could come across one of those. And when they were spoken of by the common folk, the releasers claimed to be misjudged because of the dreadful nature of their power. And when they dealt with others, always were they firm in their claim that the other epithets, notably dust-bringers, often heard in the common speech, were unacceptable substitutions, in particular for their similarity to the word void-bringers. They did also exercise anger and in great prejudice regarding it, though to many who speak, there was little difference between the two assemblies. So it's very like high manner of writing here, but there's some interesting details in there. These guys didn't like being called dust bringers, which is in fact the name of one of the orders of the Knights Radiance. That's what we're talking about here. They're like, we're the releasers. And the chapter A New Woman starts with Shallan awoke as a new woman. So there, just laid it right out for us. She's not the same one that tried to steal from Yasna Colin. She's not the same woman deceived by Cabsal and Tin. And I mean, she's kind of in charge now. She has to act it. Also, we find out a cool trick that Pattern can do where he goes inside the keyhole and then unlocks it. And she's like, wait, you could do that? And he's like, I mean, yeah, it's a pattern.
She's like, as a former locksmith, fascinating.
Right? She's like, wait, you can move things? And he's like, yeah, push a little here, a little there. Very little strength on this side. I wonder if Syl can move some stuff. I'm trying to think if we've ever seen her, but I don't recall if we've seen her move a thing. And she finds a very nice dress in Tin's stuff, so that for when Tin needs to pretend to be of higher status, and a bag of spheres. And she's like, both of these will be useful. All right. Take her money, take her clothes. Sweet. And also, her guys killed all of Tin's guards, so her guys are now the only armed force in the camp that she's taken over, which makes everyone else very uncomfortable. We find out from Pattern that the others in the convoys or in the caravan spent the night wondering if she was going to kill them next. And Vatha's like, oh, so we burned the bodies last night, like you said, but if someone comes out here and digs through the ashes, there might be questions when the bones get found. And Shallan's like, okay, thanks. Have one of the men gather the bones in a sack. I'll deal with them. And then she's like, did I just say that? Seriously? I don't know what she's going to do.
You bring me my bone bag.
Yeah. I also love that Vata doesn't skip a beat. It's like, yeah, sure. Okay. Sounds good. That's kind of what I expected you to say. Also, where's the conjure when you need it? You know?
Yeah,
they could be using them bones.
Exactly. Oh, so speaking of, random thing to tell you guys that Brandon revealed in like a Q&A at some point. He said there is a conjurer on Roshar somewhere. And the fandom has gotten into trying to guess who it is. So you guys can also try to guess who it is if you want.
Guess who the Kandra's impersonating, or guess the identity of the Kandra?
I guess the former. I mean, if you know which Kandra it is somehow, then feel free to also guess that.
It's Lopen. Lopen's a Kandra. That's why he has all these cousins.
Has a Kandra ever been that crazy? Well, there was the crazy one. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, the main villain of one of the books was a crazy Kandra.
Also, while we're on the note of crossover with Skagereel, something that the Discord was mad that I didn't mention to you guys because I forgot it at the time. So do you happen to remember when Lopen is eating street food and Kaladin is like, ew, that's gross. You can't just walk around with food like that. So that was called chowda. And if you go back to the Lost Metal, there is a scene where Wayne walks up eating some street food, described very similarly, also called chowda.
So, I do have vague memories of Wayne eating street food.
So yeah, there's a tiny detail in there.
Although knowing Wayne, like I didn't rule out the possibility that like I was eating street food, it just meant something he found in the garbage.
It could be. Yeah, no, who knows with Wayne? Yeah. Or he could have gone into a fancy restaurant and traded for something on a plate and walked out and been like, yeah, street food. But okay, so I like Shallan is like talks to Macabre, the guy who's in charge of the rest of the caravan, and she's like, I'm gonna need a palanquin. He's like, okay, yeah, the price will be, and she just stares at him, and he's like, paid out of my own purse, as thanks to you for our safe arrival. And she goes, okay, and the price for your discretion? And he's like, oh, my discretion can always be assured. My lips are not the ones you should be worried about.
You got a point.
Yeah, he's not wrong. And so a palanquin comes back with some parchment carrying it, and they carry her into town, or into the war camps, with her guys trailing her. She's got this whole group of deserters that she's recruited, as well as, if you'll recall, 5 slaves who are carrying her stuff. And also the slaves are a little smelly, so they get to walk in the back. And she's trying to figure out, how are we going to handle this thing with Dalinar Kholin? We need him, but I mean, why would he care about, like, now that Yasna's gone, why is he going to care about me? And
he's a good dude. Those are rare on this planet.
Yeah, no joke, as far as we can tell, for sure. We find out Vatha goes to talk to people. It's like Dalinar is with the king. All the high princes are there. Also, there's too many patrols around here. Something's happened. Something deadly. And Shallan's like, okay, take me to the king then. And I love Vatha. It's like, you're not gonna kill him, are you? It's like, I figure it's one reason a woman would have, get close, summon it, stab him.
I also love that, like, after he's like, don't get me wrong, I don't really like him, but it'd be hard for me to get away if he killed him. So
that's what he's worried about.
Sure, like, that's not gonna be an issue for me because I want to get away.
I really do like fun. He's like, wouldn't care if you did. Almost hope you would. But his depiction of Elhokar as he's a child wearing his father's clothes, that one is. It feels a little on target, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
He's like,
I need like a whole like novelette about Vata if we never get like his background, because he seems like an interesting bloke.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw it out there. Since Data brought it up right as we started talking about Vatha, I'll say he's the Kandra.
Just like put your chips down early. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know that, like, I don't know. What would his motivation be for like wandering around if he was the Kandra?
Maybe he's trying to groom like all these bandits and stuff to work for Kelsia.
Maybe.
He was very mad when Shallan took over, but now he's okay with it, it seems like.
Yeah.
Realized, oh yeah, those Shardblade. Shardblade cuts through people without leaving any wounds, but burns their eyes out. What would that do to a Kandra?
Huh.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. I wonder. Maybe we'll get the chance to see.
Turns him into soup.
And so they get to the king's palace, the pinnacle, and she's like, okay, Vatha, Gaz, you were with me. Everyone else stay out here. And she just tries to, like, I mean, essentially she does, just, like, confidence her way through the front door of the palace, where there's, like, a bunch of guards. Like, more guards, 16 guards. She's like, this is a lot of guards to have at the front door. And she just breezes past them. Oh, yeah, 16. And, like, she's like, you're going to announce me, Vatha, but wait till I tell you. And so they just walk past her, and the guards, like, are going to stop her, but then they hesitate, and she breezes through, and eventually one of them's like, excuse me, Brightness? Who are you? And that's when she nods to Vatha, and he's like, don't you recognize Brightness Devar, the casual betrothed of Bright Lord Adolin Colin? And that shuts them up, except that she can hear them as they go away. It's like, oh man, never can keep track of that man's women.
She's like, wait, what?
There's a thing, I don't know if you can find it online. I'll have to see if I can find the files and send it to you guys. Australian comedian named Martin Pearson, who he does like a recap of the Lord of the Rings, and every so often he throws in just songs that he plays on his guitar. But it's like a comedy recap of the movies, and every so often he'll just throw out, this wasn't in the book. What the fuck is this? But, it's done out of love. He loves it all. And one of the running gags he keeps coming back to is like the lightning fast reflexes, in sarcasm quotes, of the guards to Minas Tirith. Like every time Gandalf like does something in Minas Tirith, the guards are always like,
yeah, you're not wrong.
Stop. It's like Gandalf beats the crap out of Denethor with his stick, and the guards is like, hold.
Well, don't mess with wizards. They're subtle and quick to anger or whatever.
Yeah. Like, and then he says like the one time they actually managed to respond to obey an order really quickly is Denethor's, everyone get the fuck out of Dodge, flee for your life. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, they were on that.
We gotta get out of here.
See if I can find the files and send them to you guys.
They're pretty prompt, showing up with a bunch of like bundles of sticks for him to burn himself and his son on.
They were doing a slow walk over there, at least in the movie.
They're like, we've been waiting for this.
I was just impressed by how quickly they got the sticks. They're just like, look, we got all of these sticks. Maybe it was they took them from like the fireplace.
Yeah.
But as they proceed towards the king's chamber, Gaz is like, are you actually his betrothed? And she's like, I mean, last I checked, which granted was before my ship sank, but
yeah. Could you imagine she shows up and they're like, oh, we heard about your ship, so like he's betrothed to somebody else now.
Yeah, it could happen.
Damn it.
Apparently Adolin gets around is what she's learning, so
I get around.
And as they approach this place, there's even more guards and banners and stuff, and Gaz is like, shit, those are Sadius's colors. And Vatha's like, yeah, and all the other, because he's meeting with all the high princes, like I said. And
Gaz, you're dumb.
Shallan looks over and sees Dalinar's guards, and she's like, not many of them are light-eyed. That's kind of weird. And then she sees a tall guy with the big blue coat, and she's like, does he look familiar? Like,
crap.
Shallan, you've done it again.
And Kaladin turns around and sees her and immediately looks at her feet.
My damn boots.
Prince Adolin is engaged to a horn eater, he said flatly. And she thinks, I'm going to strangle that. Oh, I already killed 10.
She's dead now. I forgot about that.
What's that classic line from Halo? Get up so I can kill you again.
And she makes a valiant effort. I don't know if she had it planned what she was going to say already, or if she just came up with it. But she's like, no, obviously I'm not horny. I was traveling incognito because I was alone in the wilderness. And he's just like, where are my boots?
I love Kaladin is not deterred. He's just like, where are my boots?
And she tries to pull rank. She's like, that's how you address a light-eyed lady of rank. But Kaladin has never given a crap about light-eye versus dark-eyed. He's like, no, that's how I talk to a thief. I'd just gotten those boots.
I liked them. They fit my feet. Everything else I've ever worn has not, since I became a slave, lady.
And he's like, you think I'm going to let you see Dalinar? And she's like, you think you get to choose? And he's like, well, I'm the captain of his guard, woman. And she's like, oh, that's not optimal.
That's not good for me.
That's unfortunate.
Whoopsie.
So Kaladin, how's it going? I'll get you can have your boots back.
Kaladin,
imagine like after this, like Kaladin's talking to Dalinar and is like, I don't like that new betrothed of Adolin's. And Dalinar's like, why is that? She stole my boots. And Dalinar's like, okay, first Amaram and now Shallan. Like, how many of these people I'm trying to trust do you have a grudge against?
That's true. Kaladin just sounds like he's blaming people for stealing stuff from him all the time. Although it's a big jump from Shardblade to boots.
Yeah.
Son,
Although,
I'm already
it's
working
Kaladin.
on the Shardblade thing. Do you really need to add the boots to the list? I guess not.
I mean, for Kaladin, the boots are probably more important.
I mean
at this point, yeah.
It's pretty personal. His boots. He's like, do you know how hard it was for me to walk back? He was riding, so maybe it wasn't so bad. He waves his men over to like grab her basically, and she turns around. She's like, "Where'd Gaz go?" And Kaladin,
Crap. Kaladin's like, oh my god.
Kaladin like follows her gaze as she searches for Gaz, and he's like, "Gaz, what is?" And I love Gaz. He's just like, Lord, Kaladin, you're an officer, so things have been going well for you."
Hey man, how you been?
Remember that time like I was really awful to you? Good times, right?
Which one?
Funny. You're funny, Kaladin. I like you. I've always liked you. Have I told you that? You smell really good today.
Kaladin says you're not Adolin's betrothed. His betrothed drowned. You're an opportunist with a bad sense of timing. And she pulls out her ace in the hole here, where she has the copy of the message between Yasna and Navani. There should only be 2 copies. The one that Yasna had, the one that Navani had. So she's like, show Navani this. And Kaladin looks at it, and the funny note that it's like he's reading it upside down and doesn't notice because he can't read. So, and that they get into the insult thing. Start. I'm doing my job. Well, your job is to be offensive and asinine. Like, no, I'm offensive and asinine on my own time too. It's just they go back and forth, and they get some fun insults in on each other. I won't read through all of them, but there are.
You clearly don't know me very well. My name is Kaladin, and I do not give a fuck.
It's so true. She tells him his breath is bad. He tells her she talks too much. She says his parents are chulls, and he's like, oh shit, no you didn't. And eventually he concludes,
my mother was a saint.
Exactly. Eventually he concludes, you obviously are highborn light eyes. Only they can be this infuriating. And he takes off. And Vatha's like, is it really a good idea to get in a fight with the head of Dalinar's guard? And she's like, well, I mean, now there's no way that he can keep this a secret. Dalinar's going to hear about it. And Vatha's like, so it was part of the plan? And she's like, oh, no, I'm not that clever, but it'll work.
Well,
and Gaz
is off to the side, and all the former bridgemen are just surrounding him, arms folded, just like, hi, Gaz. And he's like, yep. Oh, God, they're spreading.
They let him go, though, when Kaladin stomps off, so I guess he got lucky. And Gaz is like...
They let go of him. They're still just all surrounding him.
Right.
Yeah, he's still under their careful watch. So Gaz is like, that guy was a slave at the lumber yards where I used to work. I don't know. He's violent, a troublemaker. I don't know how he got such high position in such a short time. I mean, Gaz is probably lucky he left when he did, because Thaddeus probably would have had him executed after what happened with the Bridgemen.
Absolutely.
100%. He probably knew that, saw the writing on the wall, and was like, I gotta get out of here.
Maybe. And so eventually Kaladin has to come back out, and he's like, fine, you can go in. He's not happy about it, but what can they do? And that brings us to A Matter of Perspective, which is the Adolin chapter. Now, the epigraph here, now as each order was thus matched to the nature and temperament of the herald it named patron, there was none more archetypal than the Stone Wards, who followed after Telenelot Elin, Stone Sinew, Herald of War. So we've got the 10 Orders of Knights Radiant, and apparently they each have a Herald patron, and the Stone Wards are the town group. So that's an interesting little piece of information for us.
Interesting. So we haven't met any of Town's stuff, even though Town himself has shown up.
Yeah. And so apparently we come in during a break in the meeting, or Shallan comes in during a break in the meeting. And Aelin's just like, this fucking meeting. Apparently 2 hours have passed, judging by Navani's Fabrial clock on the wall. And it's just 2 hours of high princes and their wives complaining about the assassin in white. Nobody could agree on what should be done. And Aelin's like, well, nothing can be done, except that I keep practicing. I'm going to fight him again.
Yeah, dude ran off. What do you want us to do?
And Aelin is nervous because he's not in his plate, because his dad's like, now we need to project confidence at this meeting. So, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the plate nearby. There's a bunch of shard bearers hiding in a room off to the side, ready to come out if something happens. Aelin gets some wine, orange wine, basically just juice.
I've been in prison, Cecil. I'll be happy as long as it doesn't taste like orange drink. Oh, that'll be Latour then.
Oh, the classic Fraser Niles Simpsons episode. That's a good one.
That is a good one. And Frasier, what a show.
Oh, a lot of fun.
The construction crew. Anyway.
Watch The Simpsons, people.
Yeah, you should. I rewatched Frasier like last year or earlier this year or something, just because I ran across it. A lot of it does. I mean, it has an issue that a lot of like 90s and early 2000s sitcoms have, where gay jokes were a lot funnier once upon a time than they are now.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But Frasier handles it in a little more sophisticated way than a lot of them do, because that's how Frasier handled a lot of stuff. Like Patrick Stewart shows up as like a gay guy who gets a crush on Frasier, and they actually handle it with respect for the most part. So
yeah,
okay.
But then recently I started rewatching Just Shoot Me, because apparently I'm just on a old sitcom kick, and that one's.
Oh, God,
I was about to say that one probably did
more crude.
Well,
a little bit, yeah.
No.
Anyway, so random sidebar.
Yeah. Hey, go watch some 90s sitcoms. See what it was like to live in the 90s.
Yeah, why not? Watch some Kevin Smith movies. Those are as 90s as it gets, really.
Yeah. He's still pumping them out, that guy.
Yeah, and I don't feel like he's changed much as a filmmaker since the 90s, though.
No, he's got his comfort zone. It's like, you know, if it works for him,
right?
I mean, he tried to do his like evolve as a filmmaker and go from comedy into horror, and people didn't respond so well to it. So he's gone back to what people like. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's true. There's he just announced like a new Jay and Bob movie that he's going to make.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Really?
can't remember the title. Hold on, let me go to his Instagram. It'll tell me.
I know he's got the
Kevin
4:30
Smith
movie coming out, and that looks really good.
Yeah, it looks okay. I get annoyed with him on this specific thing. He keeps putting his daughters and his daughter's boyfriend and stuff, and his daughter's boyfriends in that movie.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that part I'm not as thrilled about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, but that is something he's always done. It's like his movies are mostly populated by his buddies.
That's true. You're not wrong about that.
True, yeah.
Let's see. The new Jay and Bob flick will be called Store Wars.
Interesting. Okay.
So the thing about Kevin Smith movies is, even if the movie as a whole is not very good, there's always at least one scene in there that sticks in my mind as whether or not it's really good. I love it. You know, like Tusk had the final climactic fight scene with the walruses, which I found utterly hilarious. And Jay and Silent Bob Reboot had the bit where Ben Affleck comes out and gives the big monologue about being a dad, which like has always stuck with me since I saw it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I will say something that I've always enjoyed about his films is he does write good dialogue.
Yes.
Yep. I haven't really watched a lot of the newer ones, so I don't know if Harley Quinn Smith is a good actress.
She's not bad, but, you know, if she wasn't his daughter, I don't feel like she would be booking those roles.
Like, it's one thing to have, you know, your friends in these roles.
Mm-hmm.
When your friends are like Ben Affleck and can carry a movie.
Actors. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
not even if they're established actors, but if they're really good actors, whether or not they've been in a movie before, they can carry a movie, then you're like, well, you're a genius. When you make somebody the main actor in more than one movie because they're close to you and they're not good enough to carry that, then you start not looking good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but, you know, if I had a kid, that wanted to be in movies and I was a filmmaker, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what Will Smith did, and didn't go so great either.
Yeah, I was about to say that didn't go so great for him.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
back to
After
this,
Earth
because
is,
I don't want to talk about After Earth at all. So we're going
Not good.
back to this.
Yeah.
So Adolin confronts Relis, who is apparently the champion in the dueling ranks. He's like, "Oh, I thought it was really brave of you to offer to fight the assassin. It's very inspiring that you're willing to die for the crown." And Relis is like, "Yeah, you're assuming I'd lose." And Aelin's like, "Well, obviously you would lose, but it's beside the point."
Now I just want to see that fight. I want to see this guy get taken down a peg.
Right? Yeah. But so Adolin is really trying to manipulate him into accepting a challenge from Adolin, so that he can get some more shards and take down a Sadeas ally, basically, because Relis is from Ruthar's house. And I love the description of him as a man with a face like a shovel, flat and wide. And then it comes back later when Adolin's they're in the middle of the discussion. Adolin's like, "How does your face get that flat? I mean, geez." And Relis refuses to accept the challenge. He's like, "Oh, I mean, fight your way up the brackets for a year or two, and then we'll talk about it." And so Aelin's like, "Okay," well, he turns to the guy's cousin, Araniv, and he's like, "Okay, what about you?" Because Araniv is a lower ranked duelist, but it's Ellet, sorry. Araniv is the guy he fought before. Ellet is a lower ranked duelist, but he's hungry. So Adolin's like, "What about you? You wanna fight?" Ellet has one shard, and he gets Adolin to agree to risk all 5 of his family shards against the 1 of Ellet. And Adolin's like, "All right, let's do it." And the guy agrees. But then he's like, "Let's fight in 7 days." And Adolin's like, "Come on, how about tomorrow?" And Relis tries to manipulate it so that they can back out, but Adolin does not fall for it. And that's when Sadeas shows up. And then Sadeas kind of starts talking shit.
I always forget what Sadeas looks like and how he's described. In my head, I picture him as almost like Hans Gruber-ish sort of appearance. And then every time we get to the description, they make a point that he has a really bulbous nose. I'm like, okay, that's not quite what I had in mind.
Yeah, he has a bulbous nose and a red face. I think it's mentioned multiple times. So
yeah, and it's like I keep forgetting that. I always picture him as way more suave than he apparently looks.
Yeah, I mean, from that description, he sounds like that guy from Popeye.
Yeah. Bluto from Popeye?
No, not Bluto. The guy who's like, he wants a hamburger or whatever.
Oh, that's not Popeye. That's Beetle Bailey.
Oh, is it?
Isn't it?
Hold on.
I mean, Bluto,
Wimpy
I feel like
is
works,
from the
though.
comic strip Popeye.
Oh, okay.
I have no memory of this guy.
Isn't there a hamburger guy in Beetle Bailey as well? Or maybe Beetle Bailey just always wants hamburgers. I don't know.
Bluto has a really tiny head. I don't think his nose is that bulbous. He's got a big old body, though. But no, like Wimpy, I'm pretty sure he's the guy who's always like, "I'd gladly pay you tomorrow for a hamburger today."
For a hamburger today. Yeah, you're right.
But anyway, sorry, that's neither here nor there, really.
Yeah, but while we're talking about 90s stuff, well, I guess this was early 2000s, but go back and watch the Dilbert cartoon.
Good cartoon.
Oh, man, I'd forgotten about that one.
Starring Marv from Home Alone.
Yeah, that's true.
Really?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Wow.
Daniel
Stern.
Daniel Stern, yeah.
Yeah, Daniel Stern was the star as Dilbert.
But Dilbert's pretty one-dimensional voice-wise, so it wouldn't be hard for somebody as talented as Daniel Stern to stretch to that, I feel like.
Also, Jason Alexander as Catbert. I remember that distinctly.
That's right.
God.
But also, just, it's a cartoon from that time period. There's all sorts of names that you would know from Futurama and such. Tress MacNeille, Maurice LaMarche.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guys
it's
who
got
are in
some good voice acting.
Tom Kenny.
Things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe even Billy West on a guest episode or something.
I bet you. I'm looking at the guest star list. There's some Stone Cold Steve Austin as himself.
On Dilbert.
Yeah. Jerry Ryan from Star Trek as 7 of 9 Alarm Clock. So I like that they get her in for
as an alarm clock. Oh boy.
Anyway, we're tangenting real good today.
It's good. It's fine.
It's good stuff.
It's education. Maybe they've never heard of Dilbert the cartoon. Maybe there's somebody out there listening right now who's a huge fan of Dilbert the comic strip and is like, wait, there was a cartoon?
I have it on DVD. It's a 2-season cartoon. Got way more than, speaking of Kevin Smith, the Clerks cartoon, which we quote frequently. So if you've never seen it, you wouldn't understand many references that Joe and I have made.
That's
six
you're not
episodes.
wrong. Yeah, and only 2 aired. So
Yep.
at least in the original run, they eventually all aired on Comedy Central. But yeah, if we say Hoth cold and you're like, what is that? We're talking about the Clerks cartoon.
Who's driving? Oh my God, Bear is driving. How can that
be?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Show me the money. Okay, we're not gonna. I could do it all day.
That's
Clerks,
that's such a good episode.
It is, right?
Like, what a good idea to end an episode that like you don't really have a good ending for. It's like, the original ending was lost. It's a great show. Go watch it. It's only like you said, it's only 6
half-hour episodes.
Yeah, 6 23-minute episodes. It's not a big time commitment on your part.
But with some great performances, freaking.
Yeah.
Alec Leonardo with.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sadeas grabs Adolin and he tells him, "Think what you will, but what I did was intended as a kindness to your father. If you ever lose your mind as you age, pray the Almighty there are people like myself willing to give you a good death." Which, that's a ballsy thing to say to somebody's son. And Adolin responds with, "I'll have your throat in my hands, Sadeas. I'll squeeze and sink my dagger into your gut and twist. A good death is too good for you." Which that is more hardcore than I think we've ever seen Adolin, but I don't blame him.
Well, yeah, I mean, this guy left you literally, you and your dad and all of your men, literally to die in a battle. Like, it don't get much worse than that.
And he was supposed to be a friend.
Yes, that's the worst part, right?
Yeah. To quote Harry Potter, he was their friend. One of the probably most Nicolas Cage-like acting times on Harry Potter.
But I like that this moment gives Adolin some more confirmation about the things his dad says, because Sadeas is like, "Oh, you wouldn't want people to hear you threatening a high prince, would you?" And Adolin's like, "It's the Alethi way. You can abandon an ally on the battlefield, but you can't say something offensive in his face. Society would frown on that." He's like, "My dad is right about them all. Like, how messed up is this?" And just before he maybe goes too far, Amaram shows up. He's like, "I don't think that would be wise, Bright Lord Adolin," he says. "Don't let him provoke you. He'll use you to embarrass your father if he can." And Adolin's like, "Why do you stay with him, man? Like, you could choose a new liege. You're a shard bearer now. Come over to our camp. No one would even question it." And Amaram says, "No, I would create a divide doing that. As long as I remain with Sadeas, I can help bridge gaps. He trusts me. Your father trusts me. This can be good."
Yeah, we know how Sadeas feels about bridges.
That's.
He has a good point though. Like, if he was to turn his back on Sadeas, that would be way worse at this point than to, like, everyone. Despite Amaram being on Amaram's side, everyone sort of knows where they stand at the moment. Like, Dalinar trusts Amaram, Sadeas trusts Amaram, but I think deep down there's something that it's like, well, you're still not part of my army for Dalinar. Like, I can't confide in you about secret things and stuff. So it probably is better. But if he was to jump ship and come straight to Dalinar, that would be huge. So, like, I agreed with him at this point.
Well, I mean, what he's saying is reasonable, like you say. And if we didn't know what we know about Amaram from Kaladin, you might be like, "No, this is a good guy. Like, he's working hard to, like, bridge this gap," which we also probably are pretty confident that you cannot bridge this gap.
No, but you definitely can make it worse. And like Jack was saying in the beginning of the episode, we don't know enough about Amaram. We've never been inside his head. We know what Kaladin has seen, and that's awful. And we saw that conversation briefly between Sadeas and Amaram, which still, like, I don't think he's a saint or anything. I don't think he's really even a good guy necessarily, but he is doing some things that are good things. And what his motivation is remains to be seen, but surely he's not being like, "No, down with Alethkar, off we go." I do think that his character is one who there is, like, logic, and he has a reason for doing something. Can't say it's always a good reason or a good thing to do, but he's thought it through, which, like, I'm thinking about it as well. I was like, yeah, if he was to go, like, if you were to completely like that would shake Thaddeus, right? And he's already unpredictable and horrible as it is. That would be so much worse for Dalinar if Dalinar ended up with his sort of most confided person. Yeah. I don't want this to be confused with me saying, oh, I think Amaram's a good guy and he's made the right call. I don't, but I think he's methodical and he's thought it through and he's not about to just make it worse for everybody. And at the end of the day, it's about being worse for Amaram, not worse for everyone, probably. But yeah, his life would suck. Could you imagine if Thaddeus had a target on your back? I mean, obviously there are people here who have had the target from Thaddeus on their back.
Yep.
But Amaram doesn't want to get caught up in that for sure. And he's got too many secrets that Thaddeus knows also. So that would be bad for him because you would alienate Thaddeus, but then you'd probably alienate the people you've just gone to as well. No good comes from him jumping ship at this point for him or for anyone else, really.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I think it does come down to we need to know more about why Amaram does what he does, because I mean, you said like he's probably not like down with Alethkar. He probably is in his own way trying to do something that is good for him, but good for Alethkar also, maybe. But when it comes down to it, we don't know. At some point, there could be a moment where it's like, do what's good for me, do what's good for the country, and we need to know where that point comes by knowing like why he's doing things, which we do not.
Well, like who was he fighting in that battle where all that shit went down with Kaladin? Because like I thought it was a border dispute, but then he and his warden guy threw out some names. I'm just like, I don't recognize any of those names.
So they were in just a border dispute with another, like I think with another Alethi high princedom, like that was encroaching or they were encroaching on their territory. It's never completely clear which way that was going. But the guy who shows up to kill him, they later say is a Vedin that nobody recognizes. So somebody from Yavin.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So there was something else going on with the battle, and they're not sure. So maybe he's like working on that.
And what he says is that he can't believe Thydekar is getting so bold or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's a name we haven't heard in this book. I'm pretty sure. Who the hell's that?
Have we heard it in this book? So the one other thing that at the time I told you guys is that we'd heard the name Thydekar one other time in that book, and it was when Gavilar dies. He's like,
"Oh, that's right.
Tell Thydekar he's too late," and Seth is like, "I don't know who that is."
Okay. So So whoever this Thydekar guy is, he's got his attention on Amaram. So maybe Amaram's trying to ward off his own assassination attempts because of something he's doing. Maybe, who knows?
Okay, sorry, I went back to that part. What Amaram says is why Thydekar would risk this, but who else would it be? The Ghostbloods grow more bold. We'll need to find out who he was.
Oh wait, so Thydekar is a Ghostblood? Is that what he's saying?
That seems to be what he's saying. Kaladin, Amaram walks in the middle of the sentence, so Kaladin doesn't hear the whole thing. But he seems to think Thydekar is behind it, and then he said the Ghostbloods grow more bold, which definitely implies that these two things are related.
Okay, righto, interesting.
Yeah.
So, is Amaram going up against Kelsey or somewhere?
Interesting. Also, like that the Ghostbloods are such a known entity on Roshar is interesting to me.
Yeah. Amaram knew about them. Yasna knew about them.
I'm glad. I'm definitely, Data. I give you credit for lots of things, but I'm definitely going to give you credit for having us read Mistborn Era 1 first, because it's like, and then also allowing us to read The Last Metal before reading this, because it's like we know like this Ghostblood mystery would be so annoying if like we're like hearing about these Ghostblood people. Who are these Ghostblood people? It's like we know who they are. That is comforting, because if I just had these Ghostbloods mentioned here and there, I'd be just annoyed. I'd be like, come on.
It's like when do we get to the point on these guys?
Yeah, exactly. So
Secret Society is always an interesting like puzzle.
It's an interesting puzzle if it's answered within the first book. If it's a 5-book epic series and it doesn't get answered, like, no, that's not interesting. That's annoying.
Yeah. I think specifically for us, it would be annoying because, like, especially Stormlight are massive books. It takes us a long time to read them. So it's a long time for us to stew on this mystery. For people who just read the book all in one go, it probably wouldn't bother them as much because they just absorb it all in one go. But it's taking it. It takes us over half a year just to read one of these books. So we're sitting on this. We'd be sitting on this mystery for fucking ages before we got any answers.
On the plus side, Shallan now has a meeting set up with the Ghostbloods, so presumably we will see some more about them relatively soon.
That's true.
Okay, back to the chapter. Everyone thinks, even Adolin in his internal monologue thinks well of Amaram, that he's this great guy who spent the majority of the war diligently training new troops to send to Sadeas. Amaram was half the reason Sadeas was so effective out here, because he was back there training him up. And Amaram, kind of his conclusion is like, your father is a man who cannot bend. I wouldn't have it any other way, but it does mean that he's become a man who is not someone who can work with Sadeas. I, on the other hand, Sadeas and I agree on the means to reach an honorable goal, that they're allowed to be distasteful, and your father and I agree on what that goal should be, a better Alethkar. So he's like, he feels like he can be the bridge here to make both of these successful, except that we know that Sadeas, his goal is very different for what Alethkar is supposed to look like. So I feel like you can only work with that for so long if your goal is different from that. And then in the middle, Adolin's like, oh, I half expect Amaram to start quoting the Way of Kings. Jeez, he sounds just like my dad. And in the middle of a thought, he's like, who is that? Gorgeous red hair, pale skin, almost looks like a Shin, some freckles, giving her an exotic look.
He just has an inbuilt hottie radar.
He does.
Yeah. He's like, oh, my hottie sense is tingling.
And Amaram's like, oh my gosh, you're still doing that? Like, letting your eye be drawn by every thing that flits by.
That. Yeah, I love that. You're still doing that.
That was such a good line.
He's like, pick one. Your mother would be mortified to find you still unwed. And he's like, Yasna's still unwed too, and she's a decade older than me. And Amaram, who we saw was kind of like interested in Yasna, is like, your cousin is hardly a role model in that regard.
Someone's a little bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Got snubbed there, did you, boy?
And they talk about her red hair, and Amaram's like, yeah, Vedden, I'd warrant Horneater blood. There are family lines that pride themselves on it. And Adolin's like, a Vedden? Could it be? And he's like, excuse me, and just walks away from Amaram, like, yeah, whatever.
And in his head, it's just like, bam, bam, bam.
And he makes it over to his dad and Navani and Shallan in time to hear, Bright Lady Yasna did go down with the ship, I'm afraid. I'm sorry for your loss. And then we get to our last chapter for this week, The Silent Storm. And this one is a little bit interesting, this epigraph. Now, as the Windrunners were thus engaged, arose the event which has hitherto been referenced, namely the discovery of some wicked thing of eminence. Though whether it be some rogueries among the Radiance adherents, or of some external origin, Avina would not suggest. So just the Windrunners. So basically, I think what we're supposed to be getting out of this is Words of Radiance is talking about the various orders of Knights Radiant and giving us some little details on each. But there's like the discovery of some wicked thing of eminence is a fun phrase to me.
And then we found out there's odium.
Maybe. That would be a pretty eminent wicked thing.
Eminently wicked.
Yeah.
Something wicked this way comes.
Something eminently wicked. I can do this all day. Eminently is just a fun word.
It is, right? So yes, as somebody mentioned, we come in right where we left off the last chapter in the same sentence where Shallan's like, I'm sorry for your loss. I've brought some of Yasna's things with me that I was able to recover. My men have them outside. And we get her impressions of Dalinar and Navani. He has blunted features and short black hair silvering at the sides. His uniform made him seem like the only one in the room who knew anything about combat. And then she's like, oh, his face is all bruised up. Did he get that fighting the Barshendi? No, he got that fighting the assassin in white, just FYI. And then she thinks Navani looks like a 20-year-older Yasna, but like somehow motherly, and Yasna, like she can't imagine Yasna ever being motherly. And so Dalinar says, thank you for bringing us this news. It's good to have confirmation. And Navani is like, no. Shallan says, I want to talk to you about some of the things Yasna was working on. And Navani's like, what, more about those parchment? Nah. Ever since she got into her head that she was to blame for Gavilar's death, she's been too fascinated by those parchment. That can wait. I want you to tell me exactly what you think you saw and why you think you saw her die. Like, Navani's still not buying it.
So this chapter just seems tailor-made. Like, for all the people, much like ourselves, who believe Yasna ain't dead. So this is Brandon trying to hammer it into the readers like, no, she's definitely dead. so that when it gets revealed later that she's not, as I still believe, it seems like it's more of a shock.
I agree, Dak.
Interesting take, yeah.
And also, I think we're right still.
Yeah.
And in addition, if we are right, I'd like to know how other readers felt. Did they also see it coming, or are we just good?
Listeners, write in. When you read the book at this point, did you believe Yasna was dead?
Really, after she died, after she was stabbed, and then that chapter ends, did you think she was dead?
Okay.
And then, if you didn't, at this point, did you think she was dead?
Yeah. Did this convince you?
Yeah. Did this convince you, whether you thought she was dead before this or not, that yes, she was really dead?
I will say that I never questioned it. I was reading through a lot faster than we are, obviously, and not stopping to theorize as much. But 100%, I did not question, like, oh, Yasna got stabbed in the heart. She's dead. We're moving forward from there. But whether I'm right or you're right, who knows?
Well, you know.
Well,
but
yeah, okay.
This guy reads from a card, like I've said.
And so Dalinar tries to convince her, like, maybe after the meeting, when we're not in a room with every single High Prince and their wife and all those people. And Navani's like, no, I'm going to hear this now. And as Shallan prepares to talk, she catches sight of Adolin. She's like, oh my goodness, he's so handsome and stylish. He's wearing a uniform like his dad, but it's more stylish. But anyway, sorry, Navani.
I got distracted there. Sorry.
Let me go back to how your daughter died. My bad.
Let me tell you all about it. She got stabbed. It was rough.
Yeah, she's like, I saw her get stabbed through the chest. I'm sorry. And then she tells her, like, they were executing the crew. I had to do something to give them a chance, so I set the ship on fire. And Devon's like, what?
Look, not an unreasonable reaction there.
Wait, you did what now?
With my daughter unconscious, you set the ship on fire? And Dalinar's like, Navani, no, you doomed her. She wouldn't have been able to swim like the rest of them. And Dalinar's like, Navani, this child's choice was a good one. You could hardly expect her to take on a band of men single-handed. Spoiler, she could have. She has a magic sword.
Yeah, really. Like, and as a reader, again, if you guys are reading along and you got to this point and you're like, yeah, she could have killed them all with the sword, but she chose not to. That was a bad choice. Like, at that point, did you feel like Shallan was responsible for Yasna's death? Do we feel that way? I since I don't think Yasna's dead, I think Shallan's in the clear here. But yeah, like, why wouldn't she just pull out her magic sword and stab them? Especially if she saw Yasna get stabbed, then Yasna wouldn't know she had the magic sword.
If Yasna really isn't dead, then how about, is Shallan responsible for Yalb's death? Because we liked Yalb.
I mean,
you're like, a little bit.
He's all right.
Yeah. I'm convinced Yalb will also come back at some point. He's just I'm pretty sure.
What kind of accent do you think Yalb has?
Oh God, no idea.
He was Thalen, so
yeah, like maybe like I just think of him as real like country, but like Canadian at the same time. So he was like, oh, I just floated on I got out of there okay. I just floated on an onion, big fat onion.
I just imagine like he jumped off the ship and was just like Yalb as he went down.
Nice.
It was
nice.
both both a life Yalb. There's both a life preserver and sustenance for the ride to the shore.
I'm sorry to all Canadian listeners out there.
Oh well, sorry. No, I'm not sorry. What am I talking about?
No, I'm not. But Navani's like, I'm sorry. I'm not myself at the moment. I'm irrational. Thank you for bringing word to us. And then she leaves. And Dalinar's like, let's change the subject a little bit. I assume that your trip was an ordeal, shipwrecked in the Frostlands. And she's like, yeah, I met with a caravan and we encountered bandits, but we were rescued by some soldiers. And I was like, really? Soldiers? Like, who soldiers? She's like, they didn't say. I take it they were formerly of the Shattered Plains. And he's like, deserters, you mean? She's like, look, I didn't ask for specifics, but I promised them clemency in recognition of their act of nobility. And like we kept hearing from like Vatha and Tin and everybody that this was going to be hard, but Dalinar's like, no, yeah, okay, I'll have the king pardon them. Hanging soldiers always feels like a waste to me.
Yeah, it's because everyone always thinks Dalinar is just as crooked as the rest of them, and like no one counts on the fact that Dalinar might actually be a decent guy.
True.
Good guy Dalinar's like, why would I kill men when they're obviously still good at fighting?
Yeah, I need dudes. You got dudes. All right.
And so Shallan's like, there's another matter of some delicacy we should discuss. And then they both turn and see Adolin, who's just kind of like standing nearby, and he grins at them.
And Shallan's like, and speaking of delicacies.
She's like, he did have a very nice smile, she thinks. It is funny that after all the theorizing that we've had about like what Adolin and Shallan like meeting up would be like, that they both are just kind of like into it.
Yep.
I don't think that we had anyone guess that.
No.
And she starts to think to herself, oh, geez, this could be dangerous, because she's like immediately so attracted to him.
I too have a hottie sense.
And he walks up, introduces himself. He's like Shallan Devar, and she goes, was she? Oh, right. Yes. I'm sorry to hear of your hardships. We'll need to speak to the king of his sister. I can spare you the task if you want. And she's like, no, I'd prefer to do it myself. And he's like, okay, yeah. And as for our involvement, it did make more sense when you were Yasna's ward, didn't it? And she's like, I mean, yeah, probably. And he says, well, but now that you're here, maybe we should go for a walk and see how things feel. And she's like, I like to walk. She says, she thinks to herself, stupid, quick, say something witty. And she goes, your hair is nice.
Damn. Like,
Yeah.
she has had a response for everything, and she is weak at the knees.
But she sort of recovers, where she's like, yeah, I mean, blonde hair, we don't see a lot of that in Yaakoved. And he says, yeah, some people say it's a mark of my bloodline being impure. And she goes, oh, that's funny, they say the same thing about me. And gives him a little smile and shows off her red hair, which we know that he's kind of into. So it actually works for him a little bit, or for her rather. And then Dalinar clears his throat, and it's like, oh, right, his dad's here.
Dalinar's just like, what am I watching? And Kaladin walks past, goes, I don't know, but I hate it.
That's exactly what Kaladin would say, probably. He's like,
Adolin
Adolin.
Adolin, how do you have so many girls? How do you get there? Like, this is cringeworthy to watch.
Apparently, Adolin doesn't have to do any heavy lifting. He's just that handsome to look at that they're all just like, boom, first sight, I want him.
I guess. His dad's like, Adolin, get me some wine. He's like, Father? Oh, all right. And he walks off.
Strong wine, so I can wash the memory of that out.
And so Dalinar's like, I want to know more about you and the nature and the status of your family and why you're so eager to be involved with my son, because that was some shit that I just saw. And she just lays it out. Like, my family's destitute. My dad is dead. The people who we owe money to don't know that yet. I'd never thought about this until Yasna suggested it, but I would take it in a hot second to like help get my family out of the trouble that we're in. And Dalinar's like, so you have nothing to offer. And she's like, well, I mean, from what Yasna said, I didn't assume that money or political power was something that you were really worried about. No offense. And like Dalinar's like, no offense taken. I like it when people are direct. But, I mean, just because I want my son to be able to have a say doesn't mean I don't want him to marry well. And this is not sounding like that. And she tries to come at it. She's like, well, I mean, do you know how many people have wanted to be Yasna's ward in the last 10 years? And he's like, Yasna has not taken any other wards that he knows of, and he knows that a lot of people have tried. And so she's like, so might that not say something about me and what I can offer? Which is very vague. And I feel like he should be like, okay, but Yasna's not here to speak for you anymore. So what exactly are these things that you can offer that would make that worthwhile? But no, he's just like, okay, well.
Well, I think it's probably playing on the fact that he, like, as much as he's putting up a brave face, the fact that Yasna appears to be gone is pretty raw for him. So she's appealing to that and his fondness for her, which she would know about because Yasna would have told her.
That's probably true. Yeah.
So she's really, I don't want to say manipulating, but that's really what it is. She's working that angle, and it's a bit of a weak spot for Dalinar in this moment because it's still so fresh.
Yeah, that's a fair point. He definitely doesn't show it as much, but you're probably right. So Dalinar concludes, okay, we'll keep the casual in place for now. I want Adolin to seem unavailable to those who would manipulate him for political gain. So if you can persuade me, you can persuade Navani, and of course Adolin himself, then we can move forward with this. In the meantime, I'll give you a position as one of my lesser clerks, and you can prove yourself. And immediately, Like, she got that advice from Tin, but that's not even what this is about. The offer, she thinks it feels like ropes tightening around her immediately. This is not going to work. His charity would be her prison, she thinks. And she tries to say, like, oh, she's like, that's generous of you, but actually, but before she can finish her sentence, somebody's like, Dalinar, are we going to do this shit? Like, we going to finish this day, or am I going to have to order in a proper dinner? That's the big issue.
Yes, Alethi pizza delivery.
I mean, given that they like food real spicy, and we see a lot of crab meat, that could be an interesting pizza.
Yeah. Son, we got another order going out. Get those spicy possums ready.
Oh, but Pa, we've already set all the possums on fire.
Don't give me no lip, boy. We know these high princes love their spicy possums.
We just give them the great shell meat.
Nah, boy. Possum's what they want.
Aw, damn it. Now I have to go back to the traps. And last time one of them bit me, and now my arm's all funny.
That's probably because it's a crab possum, boy. Yeah,
there's nowhere to go from crab possums.
Yeah, not our best one.
No, if I start laughing in the middle of it, I lose it. I'm sorry. That is my bait.
Crab possum. That'll be next week. But it turns out that the guy who's yelled for Dalinar is Sabarial. And she's thinking, oh yeah, okay, Yasna's notes dismissed him as obnoxious and useless. She'd had kinder words even for High Prince Sadeas, whom she had noted was not to be trusted. At least Yasna knew that you shouldn't trust Sadeas.
It really does seem like when Gavilar died, like I assume is like I don't know how patriarchal this society is, but it really seems like if Yasna was on the throne instead of Elhokar, they probably could have unfucked this kingdom by now.
Yeah, I would say that that's a distinct possibility. But Yasna's, I'm always in favor of the smarter leader, I have to say. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people don't like an intellectual in charge. So, yes, Sadeas, she starts looking at the High Princes. Sadeas is easy to pick out, red-faced from visible veins under the skin, like her father had displayed after drinking. And we've got Ialai, a slender-necked woman with thick lips, large bust, and wide mouth. Yasna had noted she is as shrewd as her husband. And we have, on either side of Sadeas, Aladar, a renowned duelist, fond of gambling. He and Sadeas seem to be on friendly terms, but the notes had said they were enemies, so something is going on here. And on the other side, High Prince Ruthar, who Yasna considered little better than thieves, him and his wife. Dangerous and opportunistic. So we're learning a lot about people this time out. And she can immediately see how things are shaping up. On one side, you've got Dalinar and the king, and then on the other side, Sadeas, Ruthar, and Aladar. So some stuff has changed since Yasna's notes, obviously. And so they start back in on the conversation about the assassin in white. Like, what are we going to do? We have to be unified. We can't squabble among ourselves. And the king's like, yeah, that's why you should be following my commands. And Ruthar's like, no, that's why we have to abandon the stupid shit that you want to do. It's not a time to look foolish before the world. And Sabarial's like, yeah, listen to Ruthar. He's an expert on looking like a fool. I guess without wit here, somebody had to step in.
That you know what? That's what it is. It seems like Brandon realized, oh shit, I don't have wit around anymore. Who can I have who can just yell shit in the meetings? All right, let's go this High Lord we've never done anything with.
Yeah,
I miss wit.
Yeah, we've only heard like tell of him so far in this book. So she's thinking there's three factions in the room. There's the Kholin side, there's the Sadeas side, and there's the neutral people in the middle trying to be persuaded. Everyone falls into one of those, except Sabarial, who keeps rolling his eyes and sometimes throwing out commentary that bordered on the obscene. And then finally, somebody goes, High Prince Vama goes, hey, wait, who's that girl over there? Does someone have a Vedin in their retinue? And Royan's like, yeah, she was talking with Dalinar. Like, what's going on? You got news from Yaakoved? They want to hear about, Yali wants to hear about Yaakoved's succession war that's going on. Do you have information on the assassin? Why would someone in the employ of the Parshendi want to undermine your throne? And Shallan's like, I'm sorry, y'all. I know absolutely nothing about that. I hadn't even heard about the assassination in my homeland until recently. And Hatham's like, well, then what are you doing here? And Sabarial's like, she's obviously watching the zoo. And Shallan says, I'm the ward of Yasna Kholin. My purpose here is personal. And Aladar's like, yeah, okay, the phantom betrothal I heard about. All right. And then Ruthar goes, that's right. And it's he had a decided oily look about him.
Ew. Also, Phantom Betrothal, great band name.
Yeah, right? I like it. His smile seems far too predatory. He says, "Child, what would it take for you to visit my war camp and speak to my scribes? I want to know about what's happening in Yaakoved." And Royan's like, "I'll do even better. Where are you staying? I want you come stay in my palace. I want to hear about your homeland too." And she's like, she's thinking, I just told them all. They don't know anything about. Oh, okay. No, I get it. They want to know more about the betrothal and stuff. And the two that just invited her were the ones that Yasna had rated as the least politically savvy. So they're the ones who come right out and say this stuff. And Dalinar tries to be like, "Oh, no, I mean, she's in my war camp. She's going to be one of my clerks." And Shalana's be like, "Sorry, I didn't get a chance to respond to your offer. I'd love that, but I already have taken a position in another war camp." And she knew what she wanted to say next. It was a huge gamble that Yasna would not have approved of, but her instincts are telling her to go for it. And she says, "Bright Lord Sabariel was the first one to offer me an invitation." And the guy is almost choked on his wine and then narrowed his eyes at her.
Wait, I have to do shit now?
And she just shrugs at him with what she hoped was an innocent gesture and smiled. And he goes for it. He's like, yeah, that's right. A distant family relation. Couldn't possibly live with myself if I didn't give her a place to stay." And she pushes even harder by being like, "Yeah, he offered me 3 full bromes a week of support," which is apparently an outrageous amount.
Balls on this woman.
Right? And Dalinar's like, "Oh, I didn't know of this." You'd think when he's like, "Tell me about your family," she would have mentioned being related to one of the high princes, but whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm sorry, I should have told you. I didn't feel it was appropriate to stay in the house of someone who was courting me, so surely you understand." And I love, Dalinar never talks like this, but he's like, "What I'm having trouble understanding is why anyone would want to be closer to Sabariel than they need to be." Like,
Very on Dalinar.
How often does Dalinar get a zing like that?
It's like, okay, so either he thinks so little of Sabariel that he doesn't even bother trying to play the political game with him, or we're going to find out that he and Sabariel are actually old buddies, and that's just how they talk to each other.
That would be great. Yeah, no, I could see that.
Which is like, I feel like that would have come up earlier than now, but nonetheless.
I mean, yeah, he's been trying to make alliances with the other high princes since like the beginning of the last book, basically.
Yeah.
And she responds, "Oh, Uncle Sabariel is quite tolerable once you get used to him, like a very annoying noise that you eventually learn to ignore." And it's just, most seemed horrified at her comment, though Aladar smiled and Sabariel laughed out loud.
Sabariel's like, "I just came here to watch the show, and instead I've picked up someone that I have to pay to stay with me, and I'm getting zingers thrown at me left, right. Ah, fuck it, bring me more of that Alethi pizza."
He's like, "At least the meeting turned interesting, I guess." And Ruthar's like, "Okay, well, I mean, I hope you'll at least come by and brief me." And Sabariel's like, "Give it up. She's too young for you. Though with you involved, I'm sure it would be brief." And then we move on. And so,
Man, everyone's on fire today.
They really are.
You get the high princes and some wine into them, and it's like they just don't hold back.
Yeah, I think Brandon wrote all these in one sitting and was like, ha ha ha, look how funny I am.
Maybe.
So he actually just transcribed a meeting between him and his editors, and just like, perfect.
So she goes in, like, hangs out with Sabariel, and he's like, "I almost threw you out. Stupid move putting yourself in my hands. Everyone knows I like to set things on fire and watch them burn." And he says,
Flex,
"I'm sure."
Okay.
Right.
I was like, how literal is he being? Because if that's a bit too uncomfortably close to what her brother does.
Oh my gosh, that's true. So she'll feel right at home, is what you're saying.
Yeah, sure.
And he's like, "I'm certainly not going to pay you 3 bromes. That's almost as much as my mistress costs, and at least I get something from that." And she says, "Oh, you'll pay. It's a matter of public record now, but don't worry, I'll earn my keep." And she tells him she's got information that he will find profitable. And we cut back to the meeting where it's interesting to me because it's like the others are still arguing about the assassin in white. And then Aladar steers the conversation to the fact that he's unhappy that his gemstones are being taken by the crown. And like, what a thing to move to when we're trying to decide what to do about the guy trying to kill the king and maybe high princes and stuff. And then Dalinar just cuts him off and tells a story from the Way of Kings about stones stacked by the roadside. And Sabariel's like, "What the hell are you even talking about?"
Wait,
And Dalinar,
are you high? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Get back up and eat that horse with me, Vegeta. What the hell are you on about?
And so Dalinar's like, my point is that we've been going about this wrong. What we're doing is not working. We need to try another thing. If we can't beat the assassin, then let's remove his reason for attacking. Let's get his employers. And Ruthar's like, I mean, that's what we've been trying to do for 5 years. And I was like, no, we haven't been trying. Not hard enough. Here's what we're going to do. No more stupid ass games. I'm going to go out there into the plains. I'm going to find the Parshendi and I'm going to kill him. And Sadeas is like, oh, that's a great idea. You should absolutely do that. Will you be leaving tomorrow or the day after? I just want to know when there will be an open war camp. I'm outgrowing mine, and I wouldn't mind spilling into a second one after the Parshendi kill all of you. And that pisses Adolin off so much that he stands up and there's like anger spren, which look like pools of blood bubbling at his feet. And Dalinar reveals that we had a messenger from the Parshendi before the high storm last night, saying their leaders wished to discuss the possibility of peace. And that very night, the assassin struck again. Last time he came right after we'd signed the peace treaty with them. And Adar's like, is this some kind of twisted ritual of theirs? Like, this is... To his credit, Dalinar says, like, it might be a coincidence. He's been striking all over the world. Surely the Parshendi haven't contracted against all of them. But it makes me wary. So I'm going to hope for the best, plan for the worst. We're going to head out there, find the center of the Shattered Plains, either defeat them or accept their surrender. Whichever way it goes, that's what we're going to do. But I'll need some time to train first, and I'll have to choose some new shard bearers. And Royan's like, wait, new shard bearers? It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to get some new shards soon. Are we allowed to know the source of this amazing trove? And he's like, Adolin's going to win them from all of you. And some of them chuckle as if it was a joke, but it's clear that Dalinar does not intend it as a joke. So, and then we just kind of cut to the end of the meeting. And so I was like talking to Shallan, like, I guess you're coming back to my camp. Which means that the meeting wasn't the usual waste of time. It actually cost me money as well. And she goes, it could be worse. I could be boring as well as expensive. And he laughs. And he's like, oh, that's a fair point. All right. And we kind of yada yada over the fact, like, she did talk to the king, told him about Yasna's death. He took it well. Dalinar had probably already told him. And she gets the letter from a scribe saying that her men are pardoned. And we'll get specific ones with your names on them soon enough. But in the meantime, this will keep you from being arrested. By the way, this is only for past crimes, so please don't go around doing some stupid shit. Now, come on, I've got a place to stay.
You gotta put that in there, that caveat. It's like, don't just go around doing whatever you want. It's not like you're pardoned for future crimes.
No more crime.
Yeah, I can't help you beyond this.
Yeah. And look, this isn't a double jeopardy situation. Like, if you do the crime after this, you're still gonna, be convicted.
Yeah, it's like, your past is fine, but if you go ahead and you start doing any more criming,
no more criming. Criminy.
Yeah, so the Sanderlanche podcast, the podcast that does not advocate the cool crime of robbery.
Oh, you better say the cool crime of criming.
Yeah. What are the cool crimes we do advocate, Joe?
I don't think we advocate any crimes.
Oh, good. Okay.
Maybe the crime of being so good.
So let's move into predicaments.
Yeah.
For next time, we're reading 4 more chapters. So I'll throw you the names of those real quick, and then you can use them or not as you like. Chapter 39 is called Heterochromatic, which I guess means more than one color.
Is that as in related to eyes? Because can you imagine if there's like a light eye, a person with one light eye and one dark eye?
Oh yeah, what would that
do to society?
Good question. Chapter 40 is called Palona, Palona. Chapter 41 is called Scars. And chapter 42 is called Mere Vapors. So yeah. What do you guys think? What's coming next? Where are we going?
What's coming next? Well, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of settling into this new part of the book now. So I don't think we're going to be seeing anything too exciting or dramatic in the next few chapters. I think that actually, I don't know what I think. Honestly, I have no idea what's coming up. I think we're going to see Shallan sort of get settled, figure out the players. Maybe this is an opportunity to introduce some new characters on the Shattered Plains that we may not have been introduced to before in regards to the chapter titles. Polona could be a person, maybe, if Shallan's starting to, work and research and do what Shallan needs to do, in her opinion, then we might just see some more people. I like Dak's ideas about the eyes, the heterochromatic eyes. It could also be, wasn't it Seth's eyes, did they change? Like they were light and then they were dark? Or was it Kaladin just didn't sort of notice straight away that they were dark?
It said that light, they darkened. So we're not told that they went all the way from light eyes to dark eyes. They got darker than they were when they were glowing with stormlight, but that doesn't.
Yeah, okay.
But there were theories last time that he did go from light-eyed to dark-eyed.
Yes. I mean, that theory, could still hold up. We've looked at, other, I think from the Parshendi side of things, that they're looking at all the powers a bit differently and what they think is good, what versus what our characters think are good and all that sort of stuff. It's all that perspective coming into it. So yeah, it could be that. Scars could be, any. It could be literal, metaphorical, scars in the land, no idea. Yes, I'm a barrel of information to come, really. No, I think we're going to see Shallan start to settle in. I am keen to see more of her relationship building with kind of each of our main sort of perspective characters. Kaladins. How many Kaladins have we got? Obviously Kaladin, I think building that relationship with Dalinar and Adolin as well. The fact that she's also going to have to win over Navani might be a difficult task at the present. So that will be interesting to see how she goes about that. Yeah, I don't really have anything today. Sorry, folks.
So you bring up one point that's interesting because you previously predicted that Navani would take to Shallan quite quickly after getting this news and being very emotional about it, and we've only seen the one interaction so far, so it could still happen. But as of this time, she seems like she wasn't happy hearing what she did from Shallan, and then she left. So
yeah, and it could go either way. She could be like, well, now every time I look at you, I'm going to remember this moment and this news and all that sort of stuff, especially because she's then delivered the news in person. It didn't sort of come and then she turned up later. She could be like, well, why did you survive but Yasna didn't? This doesn't make sense. She could go the other way and be like, no, I'm still convinced she's alive and that's what I'm going to work towards and prove it. But she could then have conversations with Shallan about Yasna and see that in so many respects they are similar, but they're also different people. And then, maybe she will just love her and you're the closest thing I have to the last thing that Yasna was. So, honestly, it could go either way.
That's fair. Yeah, and it's definitely there's interesting possibilities either way. So, and now that we've seen Shallan and Adolin meet, their continued courtship, or I don't know if that's what you'd call it exactly. They're already engaged, but that also promises to be interesting. So do you think that will go smoothly? I
think it will probably fizzle out eventually. I don't know that I see them being together long term, but I mean they might start something. I don't know. Maybe they will end up being, the three best friends that anyone could have. Who knows, really? I think we've got a lot to get to now. You've got a lot of characters that have secrets that are going to need to come out at some point. Kaladin hasn't shared his abilities yet. Shallan hasn't shared her abilities yet. I think that's going to make them probably at least talk to each other. Yeah, and I wonder if it will almost come to their spren being like, oh, there's a spren. This person has the same ability, and well, not the same, but similar circumstances, of course. We'll still be able to tell that Shallan has a shard blade, for example, because that's a extra piece on top there. There's a lot that could happen. There's a lot that still has to come out.
Yeah, that's. Although what you said also makes me wonder, what happens if Kaladin and Shallan, if their spren don't get along?
Oh, I don't know how much it will be that do they get along with each other or not, because we already know that Syl didn't think particularly highly of them. But would they be able to sense each other or know that each other are around? So more so, like, would they make discoveries kind of because their spren tells them things? It's like Syl could say something to Kaladin, for example, going, she's got a spren, like, she's like you. We need to go and talk about this. Because I don't think we've seen any more characters that have that ability together yet.
I think you're
Maybe
right.
we have. Yeah. So it could be, and Patton could, say something to Shallan, which maybe puts her onto the case. Like, I feel like Syl's probably a little bit more tactful than Patton is.
Probably.
And Patton will go lies whenever someone's not telling the truth. So that, yeah, it could be interesting if they sort of make discoveries that way and then come together. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Adelin's going to be pissed. He doesn't have a spren.
Oh,
Maybe he'll get a spren. Maybe his spren comes in the next book.
If the three of them become the best friends and he's the only one without a spren, yeah, that'd be sad.
Yeah, I'm never good with the chapter titles. I'm going to guess we've been sticking with Shallan quite a bit, and a lot of stuff's been happening around Shallan. I'm going to guess the next chapter is Shallan's perspective. And heterochromia, though, that I don't know. Like, I know what heterochromia is, but I don't know how that's applicable in our situation if that is a Shallan perspective chapter. Maybe Polona is a common word, and I just don't know it, but I don't know what that word means, so I have no idea what it could be pertaining to. What were the other ones?
The next one is Scars.
Scars. I feel like that's got to be a Kaladin chapter. That just it sounds Kaladin-y,
Yep.
He's all emo and stuff.
And the last one was Mere Vapors.
Mere Vapors. Yeah, that again, I'm not sure. Like, it sounds more like a Shallan chapter than like a Dalinar Navani or Adolin chapter, but like, I don't know. But what do I think's happening? I've kind of already sprinkled a little bit of stuff in as we've been talking. Long term, I do think the relationship between Adolin and Shallan's gonna work out. I think the betrothal will turn into, like, and maybe it won't be fast and furious. Hopefully not. Like, maybe they'll take their time with it. But at the same time, I think it'd be nice for it to work out between them. If we've got to have Adolin around, maybe we have Shallan to temper him a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm gonna stick with my theory that she, Kaladin, and Adolin all become friends. I think that would make sense. They've got a lot in common. What else? Renarin's gonna be evil, or not evil, but he's gonna turn bad at some point, maybe go a little bad.
Be a bad boy. That's how you get girls.
Bad. Yeah, he's gonna be like, I need to get some girls too. I guess I gotta be bad. I don't know why, but I guess I gotta. Man, I don't know what's gonna happen. Just thinking on the horizon with, like, things we know are set in motion, like the Parshendi stuff. I feel like that's not going to end well. I mean, we've already got confirmation that something bad happens with the Parshendi from the journal entries. Yeah, so we know something definitely goes wrong, which we're set up for, right? Because we've got they're using this new form that, like, seems to take over their motives, emotions, and whatnot. So we've got that on the horizon. It's not going to be good. Then Shallan, if she gets to meet with the Ghost Bloods, I'm very interested to who will show up to that meeting. I'm gonna guess that it's gonna be somebody we know from previous readings, but I don't know who. I don't have a guess as to who, but I'm gonna guess that it's somebody we know if she actually gets to meeting. Also, they're expecting Tin, so
yeah, how does that go?
That part I don't know how that's gonna work. So yeah. I think that's all really I have got as far as predictions this week.
Okay. You said one thing that got me thinking about books we've already read. So you're talking about Adolin and Shallan, and maybe that'll work out. It could be an interesting way to go if these two do end up in a relationship and happy about it. So I was thinking, like, how many arranged marriages have we seen in Brandon books, and how often do they work out? So we had we
that's
had
a good point.
Serene and Raoden. Which
that
does
didn't
work out in the end.
I mean, yeah, it does.
It was
Didn't
rocky
work
for
out
a bit, but
It was rocky.
It was quite rocky, as in she thought he did.
and then hated
But-
the person that
Hated
he
him,
secretly
yeah.
was.
Right. Well, and I not just arranged marriages. I want to talk about like just in general the marriages that we've witnessed, right? Because when the first one was the Vin and Elend,
Mm-hmm.
and we really didn't get an Elend inside of head perspective until the end of that first book. I think was the first time we've got one.
I think you're probably right.
That-
Or
yeah,
at
that
least close
sounds
to
right.
the end.
And close to the end, like he was running up to the palace and stuff.
No, I think it was because you remember, like, his friend tells him like something's weird about that girl, and then he arranges for spies to follow her and stuff.
That's
So
right,
it was
that's
at that
Yeah,
point.
because in that chapter we got that tiny glimpse of Tensoon and had no idea how important that guy would become.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You're right. I remember this now. And so we didn't get a ton of his perspective, so we really just only got kind of like the Vin side of like, I kind of like this guy.
Yep.
And so, we didn't see inside both their heads simultaneously like we did at the very beginning of their meeting with these two. These two, we got both inside both of their heads very quickly, and they're like, yes,
Sure.
this person is attractive. I like this person's, like the way they look. So yeah, we've got that. The Elantris one ends up working out in the end. But
Arguably, like, the Elend had an arranged marriage set up with Channel Ariel.
oh, that's
That
right.
didn't go
That
so
one did
well.
not. Yeah, that one did not
definitely
work
didn't
out
well.
because his girlfriend killed Sean Alariel.
Yep.
But anyway, so we've got that one as well. The Elantris one read, and what is that? What's
Serene.
that? Serene. I always forget
Serene.
her name. Yeah, I
Say
always
it
forget
correctly.
her name for some reason. I always get her confused with the Warbreaker
Ciri?
daughter. Yeah, I don't know
Also
why.
an arranged marriage, Ciri and the God King. So
Yeah, it worked out eventually.
Yeah.
Well, technically it was arranged between Vivenna and the God King, and then they just subbed Siri in at the last minute.
that's true.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, it worked out. And then we had that other arranged marriage with Wax and Steris, and that ends up really
That went
working
well.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took a while, but it did work out.
So the theme is arranged marriages. They have some hardships, but they wind up working out okay for the most part.
For
When
the
it's
most
between the
part.
main characters, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, according
So,
to
yeah.
Brandon.
Maybe
As long
maybe
as there's
Shalon and
no-
Adolin work out if he keeps with that.
As long as there's no like death involved, like with Sean Lariel.
Yeah. Like Adolin's new love interest is gonna kill Shalon off.
Dude, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I kind of wish Sean Lariel had stuck around. I wish we'd gotten more Sean Lariel.
Yeah, they talked about in the movie script that he was writing that Sean Lariel was gonna be like the main bad guy in the first movie. Like,
He's splitting that book up then, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, because the Lord Ruler isn't real present in the narrative, like physically. He's kind of looming the whole time. So you kind of need maybe a more like in your face bad guy.
On-screen bad guy.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be like you still have like the Lord Ruler as the main villain, and like his red does all the heavy lifting narratively.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Use
that's
a
what
bunch
it does.
of spooky silhouettes. That always works.
I mean, like you think about like Avatar: The Last Airbender. The
Right.
Fire Lord is the main bad guy throughout like all 3 seasons, but it's only in the last season where he actually shows up in person.
That's true.
So it's and that doesn't affect it at all. Like he's like the threat, like he represents the threat, and he is the
Yeah.
final boss, and we all know that. But the fact that he takes a long time to show up doesn't hurt his presence.
Mark Hamill is the evil.
Mark Hamill's good at being the bad guy. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and trying to see what sticks. I feel like in this meeting, the Parshendi are going to be hostile to the Alethi because Eshonai is now Stormy, and that ain't good. But I do think they will probably throw out, we didn't send the assassin when they accuse him. No one will believe them except for Dalinar, because Dalinar's going to be like, well, why would they lie about that? They openly admitted it last time and surrendered. Why would they try and cover up their involvement this time?
True.
But, of course, Alethi got to Alethi, and they won't believe it. I think there's going to be a bit more to... Like, Sadeas has displayed more of an interest in Adolin in this book. And in his in one of his perspective chapters where he watched the duel, he and his wife were just like, we could make something of that guy if like somehow, like we could like, well, I don't know if they thought they could turn him, but they thought he could function in their regime. And so I think that they might start trying to appeal to Shallan's presence, because that's one of Adelin's big weaknesses is women. So they might try and make something of that. We'll see. As for the rest, I do like the idea of if Seth comes back and tries to do his job again, like he takes on the Shard Bearers. I like the idea that like maybe an opening gets created or something, like he goes for the kill shot on Dalinar, and all of a sudden that's when Shallan reveals she has the blade and she saves him.
Ooh.
I think that would be a very cinematic moment if it were to happen, but I don't know the circumstances you'd have to rig to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because everyone, why would she still be there? Everyone would be telling her to run. Anyway, and to piggyback off one of Joe's, he mentions, oh yeah, Renarin will turn evil. I'm like, you know what? That could be fun if like we're trying to think what the hell is going on with the shards. Renarin is feeling useless, and like maybe he just like he makes a deal with a higher power to get to become better, so that he can finally make a difference and help his brothers. And then it turns out the power he's made a deal with is odium.
That could be interesting, yeah.
That would be fascinating if like Renarin becomes a pawn of odium and turns to the dark side. But I'm really interested in Syl's description of Seth, and like he has powers but no spren, so that makes him an abomination. So maybe Renarin could become like Seth somehow.
Ooh.
However
Seth did that.
Yeah, we still again we have no idea how that works for Seth, but maybe Renarin winds up in a similar situation, I guess. Power wise,
Kylo Ren. Okay, Kylo Ren or Ren? Yeah, see.
Yeah.
Then I guess would Shallan have to be Rey? I don't like where this is going, honestly.
You brought it up, man.
I did. It's my fault. Yeah.
I like Force Awakens fine, but like I could live without the other two.
But yes, okay. I like the bit of an expansion on that. There's room there for Renarin or I feel like there's room for either of the brothers too, because we mentioned like what happens if like a bunch of people around him start getting a spren and Adelin's the only one without. Maybe he gets kind of bitter about stuff. I think there's room for either of these guys to become secret bad guy. This is kind of secret bad guy if you don't turn until later and then it's not a secret. I don't know.
I mean, it could work, but I think I think the more interesting thing to do at this point is Adelin coming around on Kaladin and Shallan coming around on Kaladin and then becoming like the power trio that we were talking about before. And then where's that leave Renarin? It's like, oh, okay, he'll become. It's like no one cares about Renarin. Was he even in this meeting? We don't know. I don't remember him getting mentioned.
Yeah, we've seen interactions with Adolin and Kaladin, Shallan and Kaladin, Adolin and Shallan. We haven't seen Renarin interact with that many people in general.
No.
So he's still kind of a question mark. Which, now that you pointed out, I think whether or not he's good guy, bad guy, somewhere in between, I feel like we need to see more Renarin.
I've been saying that for a while.
Yeah.
Just in general. I mean, now that Zahel will be mentoring Kaladin, maybe it's like Kaladin and Renarin get some sparring sessions together or something.
Oh yeah, that could be cool. Become training buddies. I mean, Kaladin's supposed to be trained to face a shard bearer. Renarin's a shard bearer, so
yeah.
Okay, well, good. I like some of these ideas. I'm on board. Let's read an email or two here, and then I don't think. Hold on, let me double check, make sure we don't have any patrons this week. I don't think we did. Audience. No, the person from last time was our newest patron. Okay, and we don't have any new reviews, so yeah, we'll just do a couple emails real quick. So we got several emails, and I'll just do a couple this week. We'll save a couple for later on. The first one is from Amanda Truthwatcher, and it is entitled Deadpool Wolverine. Hello, Data, Joe, Dak, and Jamie. I just thought of you guys when I saw Deadpool Wolverine. It was date night, and I drank most of a bottle of wine we ordered. If you guys haven't seen this movie yet, you have to go watch it. If you have seen it, then you know why I thought of you. Your podcast is the GOAT. Keep up all the good work. Best from Amanda Truthwatcher. So I think now we've all seen it except for Jamie. Is that still right, Jamie?
Yes, correct. I have not seen it.
Oh, you got to go see it.
Yeah, I gotta see the second one. And I have seen it. I just don't remember it at all. And I honestly don't really remember the first one. So it's not high on my priority list.
Fair.
Sorry to all the fans of Deadpool and Dak. Sorry, Dak.
So what did you guys think of Deadpool Wolverine? The ones who have seen it, clearly.
I did enjoy it. I don't think maybe it's because I waited a little bit to see it and I saw like the box office numbers and the hype around it. I didn't love it. And there was definitely nothing wrong with it. I enjoyed it a good deal, but I feel like there wasn't a strong enough like plot, which
Okay.
it's a Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
So you may not be looking for plot, like super strong plot in a Deadpool movie. And while I did enjoy the cameos, I thought it was a little too much. It got to a
Too
point,
much.
Yeah, it got to a point where I was kind of like, all right, I get it. Yeah, I get what we're doing.
Okay.
I think the only surprise cameo for me, because I had heard about a lot of the cameos ahead of time, like I'd heard about the Blade and the Elektra and
Spoilers for all of you guys who haven't seen.
Oh yeah, if you haven't seen it, we're talking about it. I apologize. Yeah, I'd heard about Blade, Elektra, and all the rest. The only one I did not know is Lady Deadpool was played by Ryan Reynolds' wife, Blake Lively. So I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Their kids were in there as Deadpools also.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the baby one was their baby, and then the kid
one was their daughter.
Their kid, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. So yeah, it was fun. It was good, not great. I didn't love it, but I thought Cassandra Nova was a little weak, honestly. Like as a enemy, weak as in like not super fleshed out as a character. And also, I didn't super love. Like I didn't love the Wolverine's storyline. Like I feel like we didn't get. I know he sits there and he tells the story, but I just feel like we didn't get enough detail, in my opinion. And so a little bummed out about that. But overall, like I said, still really, really liked it, but didn't love.
I would agree with the lacking of fleshing out the villain a little bit, and it may not be a coincidence that the first one that ends up under the Marvel production banner has one of the things that people complain about Marvel movies for, in the villains not being as developed or strong as they could be.
That was a problem people had with Phase 1 and 2, but as of Phase 3, that really turned around. That was where the villains got more interesting.
That's true.
And I would actually say that was Cassandra a bit thin as a villain? Yeah, looked like probably not the most, but I think she was what the movie needed her to be. And also, I'd say she's easily the strongest villain of any of the Deadpool movies, because like I barely remember the villains of number 2. And in number 1,
you're not wrong about that.
The only thing I remember is like the main bad guy. The only reason anyone remembers him is because his name was Francis and Deadpool thought that was hilarious. That was it.
See, I thought that with Ajax in that first movie, it was very personal, and you understood it really well because we saw the animosity develop.
Yeah, but he didn't strike me as like he wasn't quite a memorable character for me. It's like the conflict between them was personal, but as a character, he didn't really do anything to stand out beyond like, you're the guy who ruined my life. Okay,
yeah, fair.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you could. I get both sides of your arguments, and you could say even for this film that there were 2 villains, right? There was the TVA guy.
Oh, I loved him.
Yeah, I actually really liked him a lot. I wish we had gotten
Mr.
more
Darcy
of him.
was hilarious.
Yeah, Paradox, is that the character's name? I actually like Paradox a lot. And I really did like Cassandra Nova. I just wish they had used her more.
That's fair.
Paradox is I liked him too, because he's got the classic like superiority thing, but then he's so sniveling when things turn around. So yeah.
Plus,
it was great.
His comic timing. I never expected that guy to match Ryan Reynolds with comic timing delivery. Like that last fuck he yells out towards the end had me in stitches. Just, it was perfect.
Okay, yeah.
But like, a movie as a whole, I don't think it was a particularly great movie, but I think it was a fantastically fun movie.
Yes, I'll agree.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of weird considering how big of a, like, the Deadpool's obviously been heavily tied into the X-Men franchise, and one of the biggest selling points of this movie is they were bringing back the most famous X-Men. Like, every other X-Men got abandoned and left by the wayside. I mean, you had a couple in the group that they were fighting with in the Void there, but aside from that, like, it's just like, well, what about the rest? Are we really just not doing anything with them? Because they're like, the first Deadpool movie, one of the things I remember most about it was it brought in Colossus specifically because they thought the previous movies hadn't done Colossus very well. I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, we had a chance to get Colossus and Wolverine on screen, do the fastball special in a fight, and you guys, was Colossus even in this movie?
Yes, he was at the
Yeah,
birthday party.
At the
That
party,
was it.
yeah.
Right, yeah. It's
But
like,
yeah,
that's just-
no, I agree with you, and that's why I say the Wolverine stuff. I wish it was fleshed out a little bit more. Like, even if
Yeah.
we'd gotten the other X-Men in a flashback, but it was like we can't. And you know, they
We
make
can't afford
jokes about the. Yeah, I was about to say they make jokes about the budget in the movie, so you kind of get
Yeah.
it. But at the same time, it's like, oh come on, I wanted to see like something.
And it's like, it's the second Wolverine Swan Song movie in a row where the other X-Men really got the shaft, because controversially, I think Logan is actually a bit overrated. I think it is still a good movie, but I resent that it just threw the X-Men to the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they could have done something a bit more here, and they still didn't. Like, I'll always appreciate Deadpool and Wolverine for being the first X-Men movie where they look like the X-Men, because you know they got Wolverine in his yellow and blue, and then
That's
at one
true.
point in the brown costume, and they had, spoilers, Channing Tatum as like in the proper Gambit outfit was fucking cool.
Yeah,
I love
he looked
conceptually.
good, but he just he didn't play it good.
Look, I love the idea of getting the proper Gambit outfit on screen. It looked weird to me.
Yeah, I think
on him.
this is one of the things. I think in a Deadpool movie it worked.
Yeah,
in a regular
right.
X-Men movie you might have had to tweak it.
Yeah. The same thing for the Wolverine costume. Like, I loved the costume until he put on the mask, and I'm like, okay, this only works in a Deadpool.
The mask feels
Because-
a little over the top, yeah.
Yeah, because the eye, especially the eyeballs being like matching how Deadpool's eyeballs looked, I was like, that looks weird.
I mean, white eyes on masks in comics has been a whole
Yeah,
thing.
it's a thing.
Yeah,
But-
no, I know
but,
it's a
like,
thing.
and-
It's just,
and the- and
it's
the mo-
just
the
like
movie
they're not expressive. It's just weird looking.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they needed to do another couple of parts of that, because now there's the debate online. It's like, do we need to do that in the Batman movies now? And people are really
No.
Okay. We've. I don't think we're gonna do another email today. We spent a good amount of time on that one. And,
yeah.
So we have a few more emails, but we will get to them in the upcoming weeks. If you send an email, you're not hearing it for a while. That's because we've been talking. We've had a lot to talk about these episodes. So
Got a backlog.
yeah. If you'd like to send us an email, the address is thesanderlanch@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and X and Facebook and Patreon, where I, by the time this comes out, my first reading of the preview chapters for Wind and Truth should be up. I'm going to try to do, they're putting out 2 chapters a week, and I'm going to try to read 4 chapters at a time. So I'll read that every other week. And I'm going to try, I'd been doing 2 audio things on Patreon a week when it started. Trying to keep that schedule wasn't working real well for me, and I think knowing that I wouldn't be able to get 2 edited was discouraging me from even doing 1. So I think what I'm going to shoot for from here on out is to do 1 a week on the Patreon, and I feel like I could probably be more consistent if that's the goal that I'm shooting for. So that's where I'm going to go. If you follow our Patreon, hopefully you will be interested in that stuff. I'm still also reading Dragonsteel Prime at this point, so those will be going up as well. So like I said, we are doing 4 chapters for next time, 39 through 42. If you're following along, those are the ones to read. Music by Miracle of Sound, and Wasing to the Time of Next. Colo, P.S. Fashion. Crab at thee.
Amicia, you forgot your name. Don't let your spirit fade away. Amnesia, you've been through such pain, but you're growing stronger every day. Amnesia.